Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today we've got a whole new show for you. That's right, because trade season has basically wrapped up in most of your leagues, so we thought it would be a fun opportunity to take two of our favorite passions, that's fantasy football and the wagering market, combine them all together, and have some fun predictions that we're going to make. Some of them are based on some of the lines we see in some of the games, some individual props that are out there too, because the cross-section of betting and fantasy is a real thing. It helps inform a lot of our decisions. So we're going to make some bold predictions today based on some of those Vegas lines. So this is going to be a whole lot of fun. And joining me to help do all this countdowning is, of course, Andrew Erickson, BPE, Mr. Big Pot Energy, and my co-host over at Betting Pros himself, the one, the only Scott Bogman here at Fantasy Pros, who also hosts not just the Betting Pros, but also the college football betting along there, and the Dynasty Football Podcast too, which is going to be shortly, before you know it, up and running again. Right. I can't even believe, right, Boggs? Woo-wee.
Yeah, so we're in discussions right now when we're bringing it back, so it will be pretty soon.
There you go. Here. Contracts are going out. The agents are talking. We'll see how it all works out in the end. Are you holding out? Or are you holding in?
Of course, that's
the question.
I mean, you got to get what you're, you feel like you deserve, what you bring to the table. No, I'm not holding out. We're just, we're just figuring out, when we want to bring it back. When the time works.
Morris
for Pat,
is holding out.
Pat,
he's the diva. He's the tough one there. Fitz is, obviously, I'm kidding. Fitz is a glorious, beautiful human.
That's right. Joe described Fitz as a lovely human being.
He is a lovely human being. Before you met him.
That's exactly right.
So we're going to get to these bold predictions here, and we're going to start here with your number 5 prediction here. So Bogman, why don't you kick things off for us? Give me your number 5 bold prediction this week and how we can kind of interpret it for fantasy based on the Vegas information.
Hey, Jamar Chase is going to be back, and unlike some other players that we've seen this year that have come back and kind of been a little dicey, maybe came back a little bit early, I think that would have been the case if he had come back this week. But since they held him out, he should be good to go for week 13 here. And I think he gets in the end zone. Highest over for the week in this Cincinnati and Kansas City game. KC has given up the second most passing touchdowns in the NFL, and a lot of that is due to game script, of course, because they're winning. Teams have to come back on them, and they're passing a lot. And that could definitely be the situation here. And even if it's not, Cincinnati still passes the ball a ton. Joe Burrow is on fire recently. So I think Jamar Chase gets in the end zone against the Chiefs when he comes back this week. So I'll go with the Jamar Chase TD.
Yeah, that is a huge question, too, because everybody's asking that whether or not we should just throw Jamar Chase back in that lineup. And I would say if you look at some of the Vegas lines, too, for anytime touchdown score, that's a good indication, too. If you see that number looking pretty good, if it's more like a 2 or 3 to 1 as opposed to maybe a 5 or 6, that means there's a lot of confidence in the market in Jamar Chase, which means you should turn that into confidence in starting him in fantasy. Andrew Erickson, let's get to your number 5. What do you have for us today when we're looking at the wagering market and the fantasy market overlapping themselves?
Yeah, I'm looking back at the Lions quarterback here, Jared Goff, going over his passing prop, 230.5 passing yards. So he's hit the over on this number in his last 4 of 5 home games because he plays really well in the Dome. So I think that Jared Goff, I was on him against the Buffalo Bills, and he had a decent game, throwing a couple touchdowns. He had a good, solid yardage game. So I think when you look at the implied team total for the Lions at 25 points, that's a lot for a Lions offense that usually is not anywhere near. I always look at the implied team totals when I do my quarterback rankings because a lot of quarterback rankings are driven by touchdowns, and that's obviously what the implied team totals are kind of projecting. How many touchdowns will this offense score? I mean, they're up there. So I really like this game to have a lot of points. It's a over 50-point total. So I think that when you look at his weapons are healthy. He's got DJ Chark back. He's hit the over in 3 of his 4 games with DJ Chark on the field and healthy. I think that Jared Goff is going to have a good game here, and 230.5 passing yards. I think it's just too low when he's home in the Dome.
So if you're looking this week potentially to, if you're in a deeper league and you have Jared Goff or maybe the question mark of starting a Deshaun Watson, would you start Goff in this contest with some of the stats that you're just throwing out there until you see Watson look good? Because he hasn't played football in over a year and a half. And I know that was a question we took in our live stream earlier today. What do you think about Goff versus Watson this week?
Yeah, I think I would probably just go with Goff. I mean, Watson is a total wild card, and it's weird to think to just kind of put him back up in the top 15, top 12 when, I was never ranking Jacoby Brissett ever as a top 12 quarterback, even in good matchups. I know it's a good matchup technically on paper, but the Texans really haven't given up that much yardage and passing production because they just give up so much on the ground. So
they don't have to, yeah.
So why stress the narrative with Deshaun Watson? Like, let him get back, ease back, just rip up with some play action, and just give it to Nick Chubb 30 times. Like, I don't think it really needs to be that complicated for this Browns offense, and they have one of the highest implied team totals as well. So you're thinking, like Watson should smash here, but there are concerns that they just decide to run the football.
It's also fairly unprecedented, his layoff and then come back.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not really even sure what to expect with him right now.
No, and it was a new playbook too. It's not like he's come back to the same team. It was a whole new group of weapons, a whole different scenario, which is why you might have seen him struggle, and that's what everybody keeps coming back to in the preseason. Well, he didn't look so great in the preseason. Well, whole new cast of characters, different playbook, different situation, so a lot to adjust to. I can't wait to get back to Erickson for the flip side of this Detroit game too, but more on that to come. Let's get to your number 4 here on your list, Scott Bogman. What do you have for us today?
I'm going to go with the Kyren Williams over on yardage, whatever they should set it at. I'm going to assume that it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50-ish yards, somewhere around there. This game has a very, very low total. I think it's 41. One of only 3 games this week with a total that low. The Rams hosting the Seahawks, and this, Kyren Williams was in on first and second downs. He was in on 2-minute drills. He was in on passing downs. He's the lead back for the Rams now over Cam Akers, which is, that was a whole surprising thing. Let's cut Cam Akers, or and then they don't. And then Cam Akers comes in, they cut Darrell Henderson, and then Cam Akers is back, so let's go to Kyren Williams. Nothing with the Rams makes any sense right now, but Kyren Williams is their starting running back, and I think he's going to do pretty good. We just saw the Seahawks give up a whole ton of yards to Josh Jacobs, so I think Kyren could have a decent week. I'm not the most confident in him, but I think his prop could hit, and he could be a good DFS option or like a flex start if you really need somebody. So I'm going to roll Kyren Williams this week.
Well, you make a good point about the volume in the matchup against Seattle. He's going to get the bulk of the carries here, whatever is available, basically. He is ranked this week on the consensus on Fantasy Pros, and you can check that out, fantasypros.com/rankings. He's ranked right now as RB35, so he's right in that fringe grouping where you're looking at guys like Latavius Murray and Kyren Williams. Like, that's sort of the group, and then some of the guys off the waiver wire where we really have a lot of uncertainty about the Zonovan Knights and JaMychal Hasty's of the world and whether or not they're playable. Kyren Williams, you have a clear path, at least it touches, even though the upside might be shaded quite a bit. Let's get to number 4 on your list on the countdown. Andrew Erickson, what do you have for us today?
Going right back to this Lions-Jaguars game, looking at the Jaguars quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, 240.5 passing yards. That's way too low for Trevor Lawrence, and a team that is showing us that they want to throw the football. Over the last 2 games that they've played, they've gone extremely pass heavy, 4% in terms of pass rate over expectation, second in the NFL in pass rate on early downs and under a neutral game script. So they're out chucking the ball. Their starting running back is currently dealing with an injury. More incentive to just feature more passing with Trevor Lawrence under center. So I think that Lawrence going over his total, especially when you look at the Lions defense, the Lions defense has been a top 6 defense against running backs since week 6. Like, I get everyone looks at the Lions and say, oh, well, they're just going to run all over them. We've been saying that for about a month now, and we keep getting running backs that continue to disappoint every single week. But
well, they've tightened up a little bit. They have.
Yes. They have, but not in the secondary. That is the area that they have not yet tightened up. They're still working through a lot of issues. Even with Jeff Okudah, even if he's going to come back, it really hasn't mattered. So I think that Lawrence in this Jacksonville Jaguars offense, they throw the ball a ton, and they're very productive. And I think that's why you also want to stack this, parlay it, correlate it with a Christian Kirk over. Kirk definitely wasn't the number 1 receiver last week. It was Zay Jones with this massive game. But every time we've talked about Christian Kirk this season, it's always been guys like, if the matchup is there, Kirk hits. And then in bad matchups, he just doesn't do as well. This particular match, it wasn't great for him in the slot, which is why Zay Jones had the bigger game. This is the week where you want to play Christian Kirk because he's playing the Lions, who are the second worst defense against slot receivers. So he still had 9 targets last week, and I think that his 60.5 receiving yards line, I think he'll hit the over in the first half.
I'll tell you what, Bogman and I yesterday after the show, we had a big, long Trevor Lawrence conversation. It wasn't even part of the show. It was after the show. And we were talking about, look, back-to-back 20-point games for him, how important that confidence is for that drive that he had as well. And people forget, he's so young still. I mean, he's not like one of these guys who comes to the league at 25, 26 years old. He just turned 23. Yeah. Like, I mean, our scale, I compared it earlier in the live stream, Boggs, to, in the NBA, when those guys started coming in from high school, when it was Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant, everyone wanted them to be superstars right away. It's like, guys, they're 19 years old. Let's relax. Let's let these guys acclimate a little bit. But it's similar to that feel. Like, people have to be a little patient. And last year,
just imagine if those stars in the NBA also came into literally the worst coaching situation in NFL history as well.
Right.
So
exactly, and that set him back. But Lawrence starting to look like the prospect that we all thought he would be. And if he finishes strong, and next year you add Calvin Ridley into this mix too, it could be a really exciting time for sure for this team. Let's get to the next one here, number 3 on Boggs' list. Before we do, I want to remind everybody, we've still got that giveaway. It's ending very soon, so you only got a couple hours even left on it. The Austin Eckler jersey, fantasypros.com/contest. That's the place to go to enter. What do you have to do? You have to drop a nice 5-star review of the pod wherever you get your pods, Apple Podcasts. Go there, drop the 5-star review, screenshot that bad boy, head to fantasypros.com/contest, and that's like that. You're entered. And if you want more entries, make sure you subscriber over to our social media networks, which means our Instagram at Fantasy Pros, our TikTok and Fantasy Pros, and of course the Twitter machine as well. All 4 of those things get you 4 shots of that Eckler jersey. So go get it. Bogman, go get number 3 on the bold prediction list. What do you got?
Well, let's go to my number 2 because it's Trevor Lawrence over on passing touchdowns. So,
all right. So jumping ahead to jump back. I like it. Staying with the Lawrence theme here.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that Erickson just mentioned. Plus, this is the highest over of the week, or second highest over of the week at 51. We should get decent juice on this, I feel like, for the over on touchdowns as well, because the Lions are getting a little bit of extra rest coming off the Thanksgiving game. So, that the juice, it just depends on what they set it at, because you would think for most QBs, they set it at 1.5, but with Trevor Lawrence being on fire, the Detroit defense being, less than stellar against the pass, they may set his touchdown total at 2.5. instead of 1.5. And in those situations, you usually will get plus 200 or more. So I think if that's the case, that's really what I want in terms of betting for him. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence he's a QB1 this week against Detroit. He's very, very startable. So, I think like we just mentioned before, Lawrence is really turning it on. And, everything that Erickson just mentioned, Travis Etienne potentially down as well, although he was cleared to come back in the game. So you'd think he'd come back. But that's
the big wrinkle, isn't it? Like, even if he's cleared, how much do you want him to push in this game necessarily?
Right. They don't need him.
Yeah, and remember when Chuba Hubbard, he was supposed to come back in the game? Remember that? Yeah. He missed the next 2 weeks. Like, I think that's a total BS. Look, if he was healthy, they would have put him back in the game. Like,
language.
I am very skeptical.
Jeez, I don't. Eric's just getting really upset here.
No, because this happens all the time. We're like, oh, he'll be fine, and then he's not fine. It's like,
I'm with you, Andrew. I'm way more on the skeptical end of this.
It's injuries, and the point I was going to make about Travis Etienne. Yeah, he should be back, fine, but it's not like you're rushing a gimpy guy out there to get 35 carries or even 25 touches or anything. So if they do get up, you're just going to see a healthy dose of Hasty and Henderson in here anyway. And you don't really want the game. You don't want the game going through those guys. You want the game going through your best player. Trevor Lawrence is your best player. So I'll take the over on whatever they set the touchdowns at. I think he gets 3 in this game, and the yards are fantastic too. Exactly like Erickson just said. So we're all in. We're pushing the chips in on Trevor Lawrence, which means he'll pull his hamstring in the first quarter. So
no. We're not going to wish any bad things on Trevor Lawrence.
I'm not wishing it. I'm just our good friend Murphy and all of his laws. So
that's true. Let's not even put that out there. Let's talk about this though, because Lawrence right now is a consensus number 10 quarterback on the board this week over on Fantasy Pros. Behind him, Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, Garoppolo, Derek Carr, and then Jared Goff, who we just talked about. It's funny because I don't have Watson as high as the consensus does right now, but would you start Brady, Cousins, Garoppolo, Jared Goff, any of those guys over Lawrence this week? I think it's a great matchup for Lawrence, Boggs. I think Lawrence deserves that top 10 spot. What do you think?
I think so too. I'm not starting any of those guys over him. He's been outstanding last month.
Yeah, and deeper leagues, Erickson, again, this is another conversation people are having. Lawrence or Brady, Lawrence or guys like Derek Carr. Would you still go with Lawrence as well based on some of these lines we're talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Tom Brady hasn't been a top 10 quarterback since
Tom Brady,
week
who's that?
5. Since week 5, he's playing the Saints, the team that always destroys him without his starting tackle.
And Lattimore might be back, so we all know when that happens. Where
at least Mike Evans has been tearing it up. 5 catches for 14 yards. Yeah, great.
All right, Erickson, let's get to you and your number 3 prediction here. What do you have?
All right, I'm going Devin Singletary under 58.5 rushing yards. I just think that this is a very bad matchup for Devin Singletary. Look at the Patriots' run defense and what they did to Dalvin Cook on Thursday night. He had 42 rushing yards on 22 carries. He was -8 rushing EPA, which ranked dead last among anyone that had a carry in Week 12. Dalvin Cook gets 22 carries and he can't get 50 yards. Dalvin Cook, we were talking about. And now you're putting in Devin Singletary against the same elite run defense. So the Patriots haven't given up 65 rushing yards to one running back since Week 4. I think that they're going to shut down the Bills' run game, make them one-dimensional, and hope that Josh Allen makes some mistakes, as he has done a little bit more than often if they're going to try to win this game at home as obviously big home underdogs. So I don't think Singletary is going to have much of a big role here. And I've actually seen this line already move to 54.5, so it seems like the sharps, myself included, are on the under on Devin Singletary rushing.
Yeah, including yourself in the sharps, eh? All right. Let's not forget, too, Buffalo wiped the floor with the Patriots the last 2 times they met. And I think wiped the floor with them.
They never punted, right? Didn't they never punt?
Punted. In the playoffs, no, there's no punts.
I was going to take this one, Erickson, and I was looking it up, and I think, isn't it in 4 or 5 of the Patriots games, the leading rusher for their opponent has been the quarterback? It's just, that run defense is so unbelievably strong. Mm-hmm. I love this one. I love this one. It's one of the best of the week for sure. And I had all this research done for it, and then I saw that you had it on there already. So I was like, okay,
get to the show sheet early.
Yeah,
get quick.
It was my last one. I got 4 before Erickson
did. Get 4 in there, and
the last one, I was like,
you dilly-dallied on that last one.
Yeah,
and that's what happens.
That's exactly what it was.
All right, let's go back to what your new number 2 is going to be here on your list for Week 13 bold predictions. Boggs, what do you got?
Let's go with the over on A.J. Dillon rushing yards because I feel like it's going to be low, probably maybe a little higher than we expected, maybe somewhere around 35 to 40, somewhere in that neighborhood. But the Packers are only favored by 3 at Chicago, so they must be expecting Rodgers to miss this one with the thumb, rib, old, whatever it is with him. We don't know what's going on exactly right now, but the Packers are going to run against the Bears. The Bears are 27th against the run. They're allowing over 143 yards per game. Dillon has only had 15 plus carries in 2 games this season, and the last one was October 2nd against the Patriots. So they haven't been giving him the ball, but with Rodgers either well less than 100% or Jordan Love in there, you would think, and against a divisional opponent who really wants to beat them, you would think that they get back to pounding the rock. And I think A.J. Dillon's going to have to be a bigger part of that this week. Bears run defense is bad, so I think that he can do a little bit this week, maybe be a flex option for you, maybe more probably like a DFS option, but I think the over on his rushing yards could hit as well. So I will look to see when the number comes out where we're at, and I will probably put a bet on it.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon's been an enigma for the season. Started off so good in Week 1. And then it's funny, the last week in Week 12 was the first time he's reached double digits in half-point PPR points since Week 1. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I don't know who's still in here, but this might be the time to be. And then when he comes back, he's got the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Minnesota Vikings, by the way, in a playoff schedule. So it might be one of those spots where people dropped him in a shallow league. You might want to pick up A.J. Dillon just because that, if Jordan Love does play and they're talking about Aaron Rodgers' quote, I believe today was, I'm going to try to play as long as I can, as long as we're relevant. So what does that mean? A couple more hours of football? I'm not exactly sure how much more relevancy the Packers have left this year. It's just a fact. So if indeed the injuries have caught up with Aaron Rodgers, then maybe we are getting even a heavier dose of that run, which is good news for A.J. Dillon and good news potentially for that stretch run. Look, a lot of people hurting at RB right now. The depth is important. All right, let's go to your number 2 here. Andrew Erickson, what do you have for us today?
Looking at Saquon Barkley, under 70.5 rushing yards. Barkley has really disappointed over the last couple of weeks. He has 0 15-yard rushing attempts He has just one rush over 10 yards in his last 2 games. He's been averaging 2.3 yards per carry. Now, it's not all on him. The Giants' offensive line has been dealing with some injuries, but he's just kind of lacked the same amount of juice that we saw from him during the beginning of the season. Maybe just the total amount of touches and carries. I know he had that monster game against the Texans where he had like 35 carries. Maybe just starting to kind of wear and tear on his body a little bit. It's been a while since we've seen him have such a massive workload because he's missed so much time with injuries, and now you're throwing in this elite Washington run defense that is potentially going to get back Chase Young. I just cannot see a scenario where Barkley is going to be running wild because he really hasn't shown that he's hitting, the outside corner and getting these massive chunk plays, which is why you're always afraid to take the under on Barkley because you're like, oh, he only needs one. It's like, well, he hasn't done that in 2 straight weeks. And I don't think that there's no reason why that's happening. There is reasons why, because the offensive line is banged up, because he has gotten a lot of touches. He's not been efficient.
I mean, last week when they were missing 4 of the 5 guys in the offensive line starting crew,
right?
That's a big giant red flag.
But he was also facing, the last 2 weeks, he faced the Lions, who were not a great run defense, and he was facing Dallas, also not a great run defense.
Not a great run defense, but again, when you don't have the starting offensive linemen together, it's so offensive line plays so much about rhythm and timing and everybody doing what they're supposed to do at the right time. When you start interchanging pieces, it's really tough. I mean, even look at last year where the Kansas City remade their entire offensive line. Look how long it took for them to come together and play well together. It took a long time, and they were all good players, but they hadn't played together. So when you're interchanging all these pieces or 4 new pieces in at one time, it's really tough. And it's not that Andrew's saying, by the way, you take Saquon Barkley out of your lineup, because that's not happening. But you're going to have to build in some other booms somewhere into your lineup here. With that being said, Erickson, who are some of those flex guys maybe that you have in mind this week where you're like, you know what, this guy has some big upside? Is it a Zay Jones? Is it somebody else? Is it a Treylon Burks? Is it somebody like that we're talking about on that fringe there that maybe they have a little bit more upside than we realize? Are those kind of names that are so imperative this week if Barkley is due indeed for a bad game here against this Washington front?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Barkley obviously involved as a receiver, so it's not like he's going to get you 0 points. He also has touchdown equity, as the main goal line carry he scored last week against Dallas, so he didn't give you 0 points. But I would say that in your flex, you need to definitely shoot for more upside. You're not playing a floor type of player. Like, I hate to always bring him up, but like Jacoby Myers is kind of like the standard floor guy.
But he is.
Where he delivers, his 5 catches for 50 yards. Maybe he doesn't score. Like, that's not going to help you if you have Saquon Barkley, because it's really easy to see a scenario where, this Washington defense is legit. Like, they gave up less than 10 rushing yards to Dameon Pierce just a couple weeks ago when he had like 20 carries. Like, it didn't even matter. Like, he could do absolutely nothing here. So, 3rd in run defense EPA, 4th fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs, and they don't give a lot of touchdowns either. 5th in fewest rushing touchdown percentage allowed. So, and Chase Young coming back. Like, they've been doing this without Chase Young.
Yeah.
So,
and keep in mind, everybody, they've got the bye, and then they come back and play Washington again. So good times. so it's not like it's like, well, it's just 1 week and whatever. No, it's going to be 2 weeks, which is going to honestly, that's tough, man, because you're that week 14 in between. Let me tell you, man, it's not a good look there. Those people who've been riding high on Saquon Barkley, you might have missed that window to trade, and we've been talking about that on a lot of streams about, look, this is the time to kick the tires on the Barkley deal, see what you can get, if you can get somebody to give you real good value, because the schedule is tough. The offensive line is hurt. The offense is struggling. And on top of which, Barkley, I don't want to say he's running out of steam, but certainly looking to show a little tread on the tires from the season so far. All right, let's get to the number ones here on our list for week 13, our bold predictions based on the wagering market, what Vegas is telling us for fantasy. Before we do, I want to remind everybody, look, if you're not somebody who's really into wagering market, I'm telling you, if you're into fantasy, you should at least go give it a try and take a look at what we have, because Betting Pros has all these amazing tools just like Fantasy Pros does. We've got the consensus lines where you can go ahead and make the best wagers in the best spots too. So you can find all the best wagering houses where you're going to find the best lines, the prop bet cheat sheets there. So you can go in, find the projections on some of these totals and these props that we're talking about. And you can find the over-under projections right there next to them, and then the best place to bet them. So basically, it's like laying out the groundwork for success right there for you. So check out bettingpros.com if you haven't already. Download the Betting Pros app. And also don't forget about our content on YouTube too, because Bogman and I are on there all the time doing the betting content, trying to make it easy, fun, and more user-friendly in that experience. So subscribe to the YouTube channel for Betting Pros too if you're with us at Fantasy Pros, because we got Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football shows we do. The live streams are there. Bogman's been crushing the college stuff. We got the bowl games right around the corner. Amazing content going on there right now at Betting Pros. So let's check out the number ones for the week. Boggs, kick us off. What do you got?
Well, there's a couple ways it could have gone here, Joe. Really like the under on Dameon Pierce because he's just been miserable, but I think it's going to be set kind of low, and I think the Texans come to play against Deshaun Watson here. So didn't really want to mess with that. So I figured I'm on a show with Joe. We're talking some fantasy here. So why not attack his favorite player in the world, Justin Jefferson? We'll take the under on Justin Jefferson receiving yards because Sauce Gardner is the number one rated cover corner according to PFF. He also has the lowest reception percentage in coverage of any defensive back this season. DJ Reed on the other side is 9th in coverage. Their slot guy, Michael Carter, is 12th. So all of this just to say the secondary for the Jets is very, very good. And I do think they'll hold Justin Jefferson to below his total. But, his total is probably going to be somewhere around 90 yards because he's just been crushing it and making an MVP run over the last couple weeks here. He has been outstanding. Sauce is a rookie. There might be a little rumblings that he's hitting a bit of the rookie wall that we're seeing some of these guys start to hit. They're getting into, this was the last week of the college season. So that's the schedule that they're used to is up to this point right now. Everything beyond would be in the bonus for a rookie player. So, it's a tall task for anyone to stop Justin Jefferson. I don't think that Sauce will stop him. I just think he might hold him maybe out of the end zone and perhaps lower than his prop. So, and it's also fun to pick on Joe's favorite guy. So let's go with the under on Justin Jefferson, Joe.
They always say it's the people closest to you that can hurt you the most. And yeah. And look, everything you said about Sauce is right. Heck, I'm hoping to make a fair amount of money on Sauce Gardner because I had him, I think, at 5-1 for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and now we're in the negative with Sauce Gardner for that award. We're also right there with Justin Jefferson as Offensive Player of the Year for AP, who was 14-1 before the season started, by the way, which Bogman and I had talked about. Put your money here on this right now. Put $100 on it. And then just watch it go. And he's still number one right now. He has moved all the way to the top. Some spots have him at 2-1, some at like 150. You're right. Sauce is great. The Jets secondary is very good. Justin Jefferson is all world. And I think that this is where the rookie gets taken to the shed a little bit. It gets to learn a couple things about what a special wide receiver is in the NFL. It's going to be a great matchup. I'm excited to watch it. But yes, I enjoy your funny business, your monkey business you brought to the show today. Let's get to, but you know what? It's a great point too, which is if you're looking for the boom Justin Jefferson game, it's possible Sauce stops that. You might get good productivity, but you're not going to get that 30-point game necessarily. You can't count on that big one.
Justin Jefferson's getting 75 yards against anybody. It's right. Does he get more than that, and does he get in the end zone? Those are the questions. Right. And I would say this is the matchup where he's least likely to.
All right, Erickson, let's get to your number one. And please tell me you're going to say the phrase that's in the show sheet here that you wrote. Because if you do, I'm going to love you forever. Not that I don't love you already, but go on. Let's go.
All right, so I'm taking this low-hanging fruit here with Nick Chubb and his rushing prop against the lowly Houston Texans defense that, they're trotting out a high school team at this point, with the Houston Texans. They don't know what they're doing. Brandon Cooks was quoted after the game saying, like, hey, when did you guys figure out you were outmatched? He's like, yeah, the minute that we stepped on the field, like we knew we were outmatched. So I think that Nick Chubb, I know the headlines are, like Deshaun Watson's coming back, he's playing his old team. But for me, it's like this game is about Nick Chubb and how the Texans are going to have no way to stop him. So when I saw his rushing prop at 90.5 yards, child, please. This number needs to be at 100 rushing yards. Like, come on. Like, Nick Chubb is just begging to get to play the Texans twice a year like Derrick Henry does. And every time Derrick Henry plays the Texans, what does he do? No, not 100 yards. Not 150 yards. 200 yards in his last 5 games against the Houston Texans. Now Nick Chubb finally gets a piece of this Texans defense, and they're going to open his line at less than 100 yards? Come on. Nick Chubb to the moon. They don't give the ball to Kareem Hunt. So, I'm taking whatever overs I can on Nick Chubb.
And it's a good set of circumstances for Watson, because if you're going to shake the dust off, the best thing to do is turn around and hand the football to Nick Chubb, be successful, run some play action, make it easier for Watson here in this first game, because there is inevitably rust here for him to deal with coming back after not playing for so long, even against a high school team like the Houston Texans. So there you have it, everybody. Those are the 10 bold predictions for week 13, from Vegas lines to your fantasy lineups. That's what we're bringing you today. I want to thank our good pal Scott Bogman for joining us. Before we get out of here, Boggs, we got a little dynasty question right from the listener mailbag from our Discord. So here we go. Again, free to join, fantasypros.com/chat. Don't forget. But if you are a premium member, you get upgraded. You get all the AMAs. You get the stages. Boggs and I do stages after dark. Erickson's on there doing AMAs all the time, all kinds of fun stuff. This is from Azarel Speed. How do you feel about this? Rachaad White and a 2023 second rounder for Terrace Marshall and a 2023 first rounder. What side of this deal do you want to be on, Boggs?
I want the first rounder. So there's a lot of talent coming out in this class. We're going to get, pretty soon here, we're going to get all the declarations and know exactly who's going to be in this class and who is not. Of course, Bijan Robinson needs to declare still. I hope he doesn't, but I'm a Longhorns fan. So I would love to have
declare. I think it's time to go make some money. He's getting beat up over there.
He's a running back. He should. He should go get paid. But hey, it's not like he's not getting paid in college right now, guys. Let's not forget about that. He's making money on NIL deals. So
that's right.
It's not like he's, not like he's bumping up against it or anything. He can survive one more year, but he should go pro. There's just so much talent in this class. I like Rachaad White a lot. I think he's a good asset to have. Second round pick could be something good. I mean, there were good running backs dropping in the second. Brian Robinson, you probably snapped him up there. A lot of good players. Alec Pierce, a second round pick last year, and there's going to be similar guys to that talent in the second round this season as well. But I want the shot at upper tier talent. So give me that first round pick out of this group.
All right, there you have it. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Scott Bogman and Andrew Erickson, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.